Guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at JustinoTweets. Hey guys, let me know if you guys can hear me well and see me. I know that this is like a different setup and stuff, but we'll make do with what we have. But let me know if you guys can see me, hear me, all those things before we go ahead and get started. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that great and wonderful stuff. I see some of you guys are in the chat already. CeeLo says, big up SKA. Thank you so much. Big up to you as well. Winchester Crew Podcast says, yes, we can hear you. So yeah, let's do this. Welcome to SheKnowsArsenal again, you guys. Make sure you guys are following me on Twitter at SheKnowsArsenal and JustinoTweets. They're doing a daily news show. You guys know the funny thing about this daily show is like it's not ever really daily. It's just whenever. So there you go. I'm never really super consistent with this one, but you know, we're just rolling. We're just doing our thing. It's been an interesting couple of days, I have to say, being an Arsenal fan, going from feeling like the season was doomed and we were just going to crawl up into a hole and die to feeling like the world is our oyster again is so interesting. And I think that it just shows anything can happen from here on out. Any outcome is completely possible. And so as much as, I want to keep my feet on the ground, I also want to be positive about what this team can actually achieve. This team was not meant to achieve much. At the beginning of the season, a lot of people said that we would finish midish table, upper mid table. I was one of those that said 5th through 7th, and having the opportunity to potentially finish in the top 4 is something that I wouldn't have ever thought we could do at this point in this progress slash process. So it's fun. I love it. I love it. And we won 2 games on the bounce, 2 games that we maybe weren't meant to win or were supposed to be more difficult. Looking forward into the schedule, seeing Chelsea, Man United, and West Ham, it was like, oh my gosh, I hope we can get through these 6 days unscathed. And we won both games. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I think that we played amazing. I don't think that that was our best football of the season, but we won the games, and that's all that really matters. And at this point in the season, it's about getting points on the board. We'll have tons of conversations at the end of the season around, have we improved? What did the points look like? Did we like the football? What do we need to improve? How is Arteta doing? Is he improving? All those things. But right now, I don't care how we get it done. I don't care if VAR needs to help us. I don't care if we get lucky. I don't, because right now we need to just get points on the board, and that's what this team is doing. So I'm feeling good. And this show is going to be a mix of news, transfer news type stuff, and then some thinking kind of I don't know what to call it, but just thoughts about 2 players in particular, in Odegaard and Ramsdale. I saw that there's been a lot of criticism of Aaron Ramsdale over the last couple of days. I'm not quite ready to say that I feel like this player isn't who I believed he was at the beginning of the season. I think he's going through a bad run of form, but I'm seeing suggestions of him maybe needing to be dropped. And I wanted to know what you guys think about that. So we'll talk about that at the very end, as well as Odegaard. And how do you guys feel about how good this player actually is? There's been stats going around that, I mean, his chance creation numbers are up there with prime age players in the league, players that we think are world class, like Kevin De Bruyne. And his numbers are right up there with them. And not to mention, he doesn't have players like Ronaldo in front of him. He doesn't have players like Sterling and Phil Foden around him. Like, he doesn't even have a striker yet. So what kind of player do we actually have in Martin Odegaard, and what kind of striker does he need? Because the striker conversation is all about what we think we need, but what striker fits in best with this group? What striker fits in best with Martin Odegaard, who is our main creator and needs somebody probably to play off of? So it feels like where our season was crumbling, now we can kind of look forward and say, what do we need to move forward? Like, what do we need for this team to be successful? So those are things we're going to talk about. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. But first and foremost, let's talk about Mohamed Elneny. So, should Elneny get a new contract? Simon Collins wrote this, I think today or yesterday, that Mohamed Elneny has revealed he wants to sign a new contract with Arsenal. If Arsenal says, "We want you," I don't think about leaving. It's family for 6 years. I love the club. And so, of course, Mohamed Elneny, now coined the Pyramid Pirlo. This guy has had two really good shifts against difficult opposition and has done a really good job sitting in that midfield with Granit Xhaka. And now we're having conversations around should he get a new contract. And I think it's been kind of reported that Arteta wants to keep him around. And Elneny seems okay with staying. I wonder if this is a decision that's going to come down to maybe like Adu and what he wants to do with the squad and how he envisions the team moving forward. But I put out a poll yesterday asking if Elneny should get a new contract, and it was about 60-40. 60% of the Arsenal fan base that voted said that he should, and about 40% said no, he shouldn't. And I found that to be a shocking for me. I know that he's had two really good performances, but I wonder if some of this is being informed by recency bias and there's a little bit of revisionism here. And this is not to be um, rude to Mohamed Elneny or anything like that, but would we be saying these same things in January? In January, people wanted him gone. You know, they had forgotten that he was even here. Nobody cared that he went out to AFCON. Now he's played these two games and it feels like things have really shifted. And I wonder if we kind of let the high come down from the last two games, if maybe we'll think differently about this situation. Do I think it would be like death if Mohamed Elneny stayed? No, because he's not on high wages and we're not going to bring in like three midfielders. I think we need three midfielders, but will we be able to do it? No. We'll probably bring in one. That's what it seems like. All the reports are saying one. Um, but do I think that we could bring in like a free signing like Boubacar Kamara or Florian Grillitsch and up the value of the squad, bring in somebody that we could potentially sell for more and somebody that has a higher ceiling and could actually get better? Yes, I do think that we can do that. And I'm wondering if the Mohamed Elneny being a good culture guy is being overstated and over-indexed because of how we feel right now? Or do you have to have a player like this in your squad? I have to be honest. I look at a team like Man City and I don't see an Elneny there. So I'm not sure that you need somebody like that. I think we need more talented players, especially in midfield, because our midfield has been so weak. But equally, I can understand where some people are coming from and saying, you know what, it's going to be difficult to find a fifth choice midfielder that is okay with not having any playing time on very low wages. And it's just good to have around. So what do you guys think about Elneny? And do you think that he will stay ultimately? Let's see. Gail says he's a multi-tool dude, is positive, professional, and loves the club. He's not expensive either. It doesn't have to be a huge contract. Yeah, and I think that also makes an impact. How long is it? How long is that contract going to be? If it's 1 year plus one, that's completely different than a 3-year contract, right? CeeLo says he's only played 9 games this season. If Partey was around, he wouldn't be playing. Yeah, but the thing is Thomas Partey does get injured, but if we brought in another midfielder, if we brought in somebody like, let's just say Tielemans in this time, we actually wouldn't be seeing Elneny at all. So that is true. Snake Eyes says, the question is this: is he playing well now because of the fact that he wants a new contract? I thought about this as well, Snake Eyes. You do tend to see a better version of the player that you have when they're looking for a new contract. And he seems very open to staying at Arsenal, which, I mean, I don't really blame him. I don't know where he's going to go that he can get these wages and sit on the bench. I think he can go somewhere and start and end up getting paid less, maybe half of what he's getting paid now at Arsenal. So maybe it is in his best interest to stay at Arsenal and collect those wages because they're so good for somebody who's not playing. But I mean, I can't help but remember being very frustrated with Elneny in games where we had a lot of the ball and he couldn't pick the pass. He tends to do well when we are the team that has to work hard off the ball and be more defensive. But when we become more dominant and those games become less and less and less, what is the value of having Elneny around? Is it worth having a spot on the roster being taken up by somebody who, although is a nice guy, can't really help us in the majority of games where that we're playing? Let's see. BX Gunner says we need depth and somebody with a positive mentality. The Winchester Crew podcast says I would wait till the end of the season, but honestly, I don't know. He could be an okay rotation player, but recency bias. But saying you're okay on the bench isn't a good mindset to have. Is that good for competition for places? I mean, I guess my personal preference is if I had to have a good culture guy that doesn't mind sitting on the bench and is 30 years old and is not getting paid a lot and is average, would I rather have that or a younger player that's probably just as good as Elneny, maybe a little bit better, but is chomping at the bit to get into that first team? And their value could actually increase. And if we didn't want them, we could sell them. Would I prefer to use that spot for that? I think so. I think when it comes to culture, it's about 20-80. I think talent is 80% and culture is 20. I don't think it's like as close as some people make it out to seem. That's my thing. So can you have a better player that's a good guy to have around? Yeah. And I would prefer that. But I get what you guys are saying. Lynn says, in my opinion, Elneny should be given a new contract because he has come in and showed that he can play for the badge regardless of how little he has played. Fair enough. I am surprised at how good he's kind of clicked into gear after not playing for so long. That is something that some players just don't have. We've seen players like Pepe struggle to get going when we need them to step in. So he is somebody that you can depend upon. Like when you need him, he's available and ready to go and has a really positive attitude. So I see that. CeeLo says it's time to move on. Happens every time he plays in 2 games. Leave it. Hey, fair enough. I can see why you would say either. You know what I mean? Like I can see good reasons for why he should, and I can also see good reasons for why he shouldn't. John P says he's a brilliant squad player and cheap, more to spend on a striker. Do I necessarily feel like we couldn't move Elneny on and still improve midfield and striker? I do think we could, but I hear what you're saying. Bam Bam says, Elneny is a great squad player who won't complain about game time. We need 2 different types of midfielders. I would send Lokonga on loan if he was overloaded. I've been seeing this a lot as well. There's been a shift in the feeling around the fan base, not from everybody, but there is a shift around Elneny being somebody that they'd rather keep, Xhaka being somebody that they'd rather keep, and seeing somebody like Lokonga go on loan and Maitland-Niles leaving, which I think is a certainty anyway. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm not sure how I feel about that. The shift on Lokonga. Lokonga is a young player that obviously needs more experience. Would I send him out on loan? I don't know, but it feels like over the last 2 games, because we've done well against bigger teams, it's been, okay, we need Elneny and Granit Xhaka, but we hadn't even seen Elneny before. And so the shift is very sudden and sharp. And I'm not sure I'm ready to just throw in the towel on Sambi Lokonga now, just because he wasn't great in the games that he played. Because I've seen games where Elneny hasn't been great. And that's why nobody missed him until he just rocked up against Chelsea the other day. John says, top Arsenal culture is better than top City culture. We don't have to model every aspect of our team from City despite Arteta. That's a really good point, I think, John, that often we look at other teams and, saying we have to do the Liverpool model or look at what City's doing, and maybe we can do our own thing, and it doesn't really matter if Chelsea doesn't have or City doesn't have a Elneny. If we have one, that doesn't necessarily mean that our project will fail. So you're right. I do think that that's a very, very good point. BX Gunner says, we're not City or any other top club. We're building and growing and need these bit players that know their role. Blaze says, I like Elneny, but we need to move on. We can buy other midfielders who is better than him. We can. It just depends on how many midfielders that the club actually wants to bring in. I don't think that that's really clear. From what I've seen, it's a midfielder. So it's a very strong possibility that we bring in just one midfielder that will fight for a position against Granit Xhaka, because it's not out of the realm of possibility for me that Granit Xhaka starts next season. I don't really see this this move away from Granit Xhaka that I thought I saw before. Like, I can easily see him starting games next season and there being somebody else that's fighting for a position with him. Like, we have 3 potential starting midfielders, and then Elneny and Sambi back them up. That's not like a horrible scenario. I do just feel like I'd rather Elneny just go and we bring in somebody like Florian Grillitsch on free, or Boubacar Kamara on a free. 2 players that can actually play center back as well, and you cover 2 positions. They can also play as a single pivot in midfield. So if something were to happen to Thomas Partey, we can keep our same way of play that we've been playing with the more forward-thinking 8s and 1-6. But either way, I think it's fine. I just think it's interesting how people think. John P says he has not played in months and comes in ready every time. Captain Joka says Tielemans isn't better than Elneny, though. He actually is. I have to disagree. I think Tielemans is better than Elneny, but I think it's difficult because they're 2 completely different players, and people are really low on Tielemans right now because he's had some difficult games and he's not particularly defensively solid. But you also have to remember that Leicester play a very free system where they don't really track or do any defensive work anyway, and it was all meant for Ndidi to do all the defensive work. And so without Ndidi, Tielemans is exposed, quite similarly to when you don't have Thomas Partey behind Xhaka. Maybe sometimes Xhaka gets exposed. Like, these things have to come into consideration. So Tielemans and Elneny are 2 completely different players, but Tielemans would start for a top 6 team and Elneny doesn't. So I don't think he's better, to be honest. Tony says Elneny is our best defender from midfield. If we don't replace that aspect, keep him. And that's why I said like a Boubacar Kamara or a Grillitsch. These are CDMs, like they're actually CDMs. So yeah. Yes, S, this is a real conversation. S says if Elneny stays, our DM options next year will be Partey, Elneny, and Zambi. I mean, you guys, I don't know if that's really good enough for what we're trying to do. I look at it very similarly to that, where I look at those 3 and I'm like, okay, we have a kid that's clearly far away. And then we have Elneny, who on most days we can all be honest and say that he's average. But hey, a lot of people want to keep him. But I think I want to say when the high of this comes down, of these last 2 games, we might feel differently. I'm not sure. Let's see what the community poll is saying. I put up a community poll, you guys, if you want to vote on it. But it says 70% yes and 30% no. So the people are very positive on Elneny on Elneny right now. So yeah, I think the consensus here is that most people are okay with him staying. Fair enough. As like a 5th choice. And that's fine with me. I would go in a different direction, but I won't cry. We have got to get a better midfield core. I just don't think it's up to the standard of the other teams that I see really pushing. And so when I look at it, I still would view, even with an additional midfielder, as our midfield being quite weak. But that's just my thing. Yo-Yo says, Gooners always fear change. Thank God fans have little to say in the squad. Um, yeah, I mean, it may be just a little bit of we're just trying to hold on to the people that we have. I don't know why we would. Elneny's not that good. Um, and that's not to kill him. Like, it's really not to kill him, but he's not that good. Mario's down bad says City's backup DM is a 36-year-old Fernandinho. Liverpool's backup is a DM is a 26-year-old Milner. Elneny can play a role in the squad. I think Fernandinho and Milner are superior to Elneny still. Like, Fernandinho was once a world-class midfielder. You know, Milner has like over 800 appearances in the Premier League. Like, I think we're comparing apples to oranges. Sunil says Kamara, Ruiz, Grealish are decent players, but never a level raiser. I don't know if I agree with that. I think Kamara could end up being something really special. And I think Fabian Ruiz is already on the cusp. If he goes to a better team than Napoli, he will be one of the better midfielders in Europe. Grealish would be more of like a squad player-y type. So, but what he can add that Elneny doesn't is the ability to play as a center back, and he can play as a lone pivot, and he has more size and physicality to him. But in terms of the level raiser, I don't really agree with Kamara and Ruiz not being level raisers. I think they're better than some of the midfielders that we have right now. So, but yeah, I love this, guys. But I don't think he should stay. That's just my final on that. She knows football says Elneny has done a job, not good enough to play Champions League though. I think at the end of the day, like how I kind of think of these things, just to kind of just wrap it up here on the Elneny conversation is if we were down to our bare bones and that's who we had left, and we had to play in Champions League or play a really important game, would I be confident that that person would do a good job? And Elneny for me, I've seen games where he hasn't been good. So I'm not going to let these last two games kind of cloud my vision on that. But that being said, he has enough in his CV for Arsenal fans to feel like on a cloudy day, he can be someone that can come in and make things better. Against Man United last season when I think we beat them away from home in these two games. So fair enough. But there's about 100 of you guys watching. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're going to move on to Gabriel Jesus. Let me pull up that tweet that came up. Okay, so this came out obviously a couple of days ago that Jorge Nicola says Arsenal have offered Gabriel Jesus a salary of $6 million per season, and he earns $3.5 million per season at Man City. The player has already given his okay, and that's about 125 grand a week, I believe. So for all of us like math guys or math girls that are, you know, afraid for the wage bill to be blown up by a couple of players, that's what he'd be getting paid at Arsenal. And then coming from Ornstein yesterday or the day before, it says Arsenal are current favorites to sign Gabriel Jesus. And there's been more reports just kind of coming out that he's given the green light. He wants to come. Edu and his agent have been speaking, and all that needs to be done is the two clubs talk to each other and figure out what the fee is. I don't think there's really much that Gabriel Jesus can do now into the end of the season to stay at Man City or for them to change their minds, because they will bring in Holland. And so once they bring in Holland, and obviously they already bought Julian Alvarez, there's not going to be a lot of playing time there for Gabriel Jesus. And I think with also recent reports coming out around us wanting two forwards instead of one, I think that's resting some of the Arsenal fan base's minds around bringing in Gabriel Jesus. I think there was an initial, oh no, I don't want this guy because we're only going to bring in one forward. You guys, we're going to bring in more than one. I think it was like two forwards and a winger or something like that. So we're going to do major surgery on the front line of our team. So with that, I think people feel a lot more comfortable with somebody like Gabriel Jesus coming in, because they know we're still going to go after somebody that's more of a traditional striker. But how are you guys feeling about Gabriel Jesus now? Now that, the dust is settled a little bit and the initial like, oh my gosh, and, you know, is this all we're going to get? Now that that's kind of calmed down, are you guys feeling positive about Gabriel Jesus? Do you think that this is somebody that will improve us? 25 years old, still has probably his best years ahead of him, vast experience at the highest level, scores goals, intense, can press, can play all across the front line. The versatility and experience for me is the most important thing that Gabriel Jesus can give this team. And he's somebody that's working really hard to make sure that he makes the World Cup squad for Brazil. So this is somebody that we could get and could really change the complexion of our front line, even without a striker, I think. Even we're still going to get one, but he's just so different than what we have. Like, we really lack intensity up top, I think. And we lack experience. And he can definitely give that. He's way more experienced in his young age than Lacazette in terms of being able to play in Champions League and at the highest level. So I'm loving this link. I hope it happens. If it's at 30 million, that's a steal. And when you look at what we did with Odegaard, somebody who wasn't necessarily number one choice at a big club, still had really good experience, still young. We brought them in for like 30 million. I think that this is similar in that way. I still think Odegaard is obviously a really special player, and I'm not sure Gabriel Jesus is as special, if that makes sense. But it's the same kind of deal. Going to a big club, taking somebody that they have there that's kind of out of favor, and help bringing them in to help build our project. And so how are you guys feeling about Gabriel Jesus now that the dust is kind of settled on it a little bit? Let's see what you guys are saying. Tony says, I'm going to buy a custom shirt with Gabby, Gabby, Gabby on the back. That's yeah. I mean, so many Gabbies. The more Gabbies, the better. You know what I'm saying? Captain Joka says, NUNEZ, Jesus, Gakpo, and Ketia, and Balogun as our striker next season. Let's go. I would love to see Balogun stay out on loan. I do like the link that he has to Fulham, a team coming up to the Premier League. Balogun is coming on well. He really needed to play first team football, like grown-ups football. And so I'm loving watching Balogun kind of grow. And Ketia, I don't think will stay. But I like the NUNEZ, Jesus, Gakpo. I do like that. Let's see. BX Gunner says Gabriel would be an upgrade. E3 Boss says, where do you think Jesus plays though? Because apparently he's better on the wing, but I take him as most. So I think there's going to be situations where, like, let's say we bring in somebody like NUNEZ, where he's somebody that plays really well on the counterattack with big space in behind. We know as Arsenal fans that there's going to be games against the lower half. And as we get better, it won't just be the lower half. It'll be like basically the entire league beyond the upper mid-table and the top 4 teams that are going to sit in against us and try to counter on us. So if we don't have that space in behind, there's going to be players that suffer from that. And somebody like a NUNEZ would suffer in a team where you have to play in tighter spaces and be a little bit more clever around the box. And so you might need somebody with a little bit more creativity and a little bit more technique and flair to lead your line on that day. So if we were playing against somebody like a Southampton, like we did the other day, that kind of just sat in on us and we had to try to be cuter around the box and thread the needle, somebody like Jesus would probably be a better option to play with Saka and, let's say, Emile Smith-Rowe. That would be something that I think that would be an option that we don't really have right now. So I can see scenarios like that where he would play through the middle when we need to be a little bit more patient because we don't have space in behind. I can also see him playing off the left. When I was watching some of his best highlights, he did play off of the left. And you know that Arteta loves an inverted winger. Some of his best play comes off of the left. And we do have a gap there. I know that Emile Smith-Rowe and Martinelli play there nominally as left wingers, but I'm not sure that that's who they are long term, especially Emile Smith-Rowe. We all know that even though he doesn't have the fitness for it now, Emile Smith-Rowe is destined to be some sort of interior 8 or a 10 or something like that. He just doesn't have the body for it. So we have a gap at left wing. So I can see him playing there. And then I can also see him stepping in for Bukayo Saka because right now we don't have a suitable backup for Bukayo Saka. But if push comes to shove and you need to play somebody else because Saka can't play, Gabriel Jesus could easily play there as well. So I think he'll play center forward, but I also think he'll play off of the left. Like I could see, like let's just say we got NUNEZ, like NUNEZ, Gabriel, Jesus, and Saka. I can easily see that happening. So I can see him playing across the whole entire front three, to be honest. Bam Bam says, I take him as a forward, but still looking for a number 9 or Narbry. If we get him and Jesus number 9, yeah, I mean, it still seems as though we're looking at a traditional number 9 to bring in. This is just a really good market opportunity to bring in somebody with the experience and the versatility, and he's better than what we have, you know? ZFB says Gakpo, Osimhen, Kelechi, Jesus, and Ketia, and leave Balogun on loan. The thing about Kelechi Iheanacho, I see a lot of people talking about him, but that's essentially what Leicester did. They took him from Man City, and he's been kind of an additional forward option to play with or instead of Vardy. That's what I see Gabriel Jesus being for us. Is someone that can fill in as a second forward or a striker or a different type of option. I wouldn't get Kelechi Iheanacho because he's dead now, but Jesus would be our version of that. And that doesn't mean that you don't get a Vardy, if that makes sense. Blaze says, Jess, why some Arsenal fans don't rate Gabriel Jesus. He's better than Lacazette and Nketiah. I think it's just more the apprehension around, like, is this all we're getting? Because when you go after somebody like Vlahovic, that's what you want to see. You want to see something similar to that. And Gabriel Jesus has this weird narrative around him that he's not very good and he doesn't score goals. He does. But when he came to City, he was like 21. He was really, really young. And what he's accomplished so far in the game is something that a lot of 25-year-olds haven't, they're not even anywhere near that. When you play behind somebody like Sergio Aguero, you're always going to look like less. Like Sergio Aguero is one of the best strikers in the last 10 years in the Premier League. Like before, like Thierry Henry and stuff like that, like Aguero, when you get into this next group of strikers, he's up there with the best of the best. And that was who Gabriel Jesus was understudying for. That's a very difficult shadow to get out from underneath. And Jesus kind of strikes me as somebody that needs love. Like he needs to feel like he's the guy and people really are confident in him. And I'm not sure he really has that relationship with Pep. He has a lot of pressure on him. So there's this weird narrative around him that he's not very good and he's this bottle job and he doesn't score goals, but that's a total lie. He does score goals. He is dangerous. He is better than Lacazette. He's better than a lot of the players that we have. Like I would venture to say he's better than everybody but Bukayo Saka in our front line. He just is. So I just think it's at City, he's not as good as some of the other players, but he's definitely better than what we have. And he just has that weird narrative around him, but it's not true. It's not true at all. S says, I take Jesus in a heartbeat. Let's see. Z Gould says, hey, Jess, if you get Jesus, I'll be worried. He'll definitely improve Arsenal. That's a Man United fan saying that. He's just a good football player. He may not be an amazing striker, but he's going to up the technical quality of this team. He's going to up the versatility of this team. He's just a very good player. Like, I don't know how people don't see it. But yeah, DMC says, Jesus, target, fire, fire, fire. I love that. Arsenal Granny says, great player, get him. She Knows Football, thank you so much for your super chat. Says, here's to the best, smartest, and most balanced analyst on YouTube. Treats everyone really well. The only YouTube show I will watch. That's very, very sweet. I know I can be a little bit feisty on here, but you guys know I love you guys. It's a safe place where we could be feisty with each other and it's cool. But I'm glad that, you feel that way about me. I really appreciate it. I'm just here talking my shit, just speaking my truth, Let's see. Happily Egg says Jesus is not prolific from the wing, inside right, inside left position. Only 9 goals in the league this season. He may be better through the middle. I think he's not necessarily prolific. I do agree with that. But what I would say is that a lot of players just need a change of environment and they click into gear because the environment that they're in doesn't allow them to be what all that they could be. I see, and maybe it's because I just love the player so much and I always have. But I just, not that I think City is a bad place for him to be. I just see this like constant worry on his face, constant pressure on his head, like to be the guy that could step in for Aguero. That's just so hard. And so if you look at his numbers, of course they're not prolific, but I think in the right team with the right backing, he could become way more consistent and clinical. I like him through the middle most. That's the position. Like when we were looking more for somebody that could be a better version of Lacazette, he was the person that came to my mind first, and Jonathan David second. But I equally like him on the wings and stuff. I think he needs a change of environment. I just do. Um, so let's see. Yeah, you guys, Kelechi Iheanacho is not very good to me. Yo-Yo says Gabriel Jesus is not being signed to play second fiddle. He would want reassurances after holding bench from a top side in the Premier League, but equally he'll still have to fight for his position. The thing is that we don't need to be bringing in anybody that feels like, okay, I want assurances, I'm going to always play. You know, I need to be the number one guy. I think he'll get assurances that there's tons of playing time here for you, but equally he's going to have to, those forward players have to fight for their positions. As I also feel like the guys in the back need to have more at stake. Because the way that Ben White and Gabriel have been playing over the last couple of days, it would have been nice to have somebody else there that could take their spot. Just to keep things fresh. We still should bring in another number 9. We still should be flexible, but Gabriel Jesus could start off at the left for us. You know, he'll either start through the middle or he'll start on the left. But this whole thing that he needs to be assured that he's going to play every single game or something, nah. We need players that want to fight for their position and know, even though he's coming from City and he wasn't getting a lot of playing time there, he's not going to come into an environment where it's guaranteed that he plays every single game. I personally think that that's been a huge issue at Arsenal over the last couple of years. There's just not enough competition. So assurances that you're going to be, you know, basically considered a starter, but you still need to work for your spot. And in different games, we need different options. There'll be games where Gabriel Jesus is not our best option. So we just have to suck it up. Blaze says Gabriel Jesus and Gakpo could be a replacement for Lacazette and Pepe if they will come to Arsenal. Yeah, you guys know how I feel about Gakpo. I also think he's another one that can play centrally or off left. He is somebody that I would love to see come in. Let's see. Mario's download says, but he doesn't score goals. It's not a narrative, it's facts. A week ago, he had 3 Premier League goals all season in the most creative system in Europe. I kind of get what you're trying to say, but like the seasons before, he obviously scored more goals. This season, he's played a lot. He's played less. And it's just more than just about the goals for me. This whole he doesn't score goals thing is just, it is a fallacy. He just doesn't score as much as other number 9s, but in that system, he's not required to score that much. It's never, him not scoring enough goals has never been a reason why Man City have performed poorly, because their system doesn't require one person to score 20 goals. One season he had 9, one season he had 15, one season he had 10. Just like one season Raheem Sterling had 15, one season he had 20, one season he had whatever. So I think this is just something that he doesn't score goals is a lie. He does score goals. Does the system that City play require him to be prolific and be somewhat of like a Salah and Mane type? No. I just think their system is also changing where they need something a little bit different. And so he is being phased out a little bit. I think like they're obviously want to bring in Holland and they've been doing different things up top, but I'm just not really here for he just doesn't score goals. And what I'm more interested in from Gabriel Jesus is this. I'll pull it up. Because I also think we have a savior complex and we want a guaranteed 20 goals from a player. the best teams in Europe don't have one player scoring 20, 25 goals. That's just not how it works anymore. So yeah, in 2019, 2020, he had so he went 7, 13, 7, 14, 9, and 7. So, it's not like huge numbers, but again, a lot of people were okay with Lacazette not scoring any goals until he stopped the link up play. So there you go. Let's stop sharing this. Let's share something else. All right. So this is more what I give a shit about because, again, nobody was too worried about Lacazette until he wasn't doing any of the link up play. And you see what Bukayo Saka and Emile Smith Rowe, Martinelli, these players are starting to add more goals to their game. So if you have a center striker that at least has 10 goals in them a season, you're way better off than having Lacazette who has like 4. And also has stopped doing the link up play, doesn't press, has no intensity, cannot run, cannot link. Like, this is what I'm saying. So this is against, so let's look at against forwards. This guy is really productive. He is very, very productive. And I know people don't like statistics. They don't like these types of charts because they don't feel like it's relevant, but it is when you look at the entire picture. This guy is very, very productive creatively for Manchester City. He may not always get the assist, but he's the pass before the assist. He's the guy that creates the space. He is going to give us so many different he's going to give us so much more intensity up front and a lot more creativity. If you guys think Lacazette's link up play was something special, then this is 10 times better than that. I completely understand he doesn't score enough goals, but the way that we're kind of moving and the way that I see Saka and Emile Smith Rowe and Martinelli growing, it won't be that big of a deal. Plus, we're still going to get a number 9. He's just so good, you guys. Progressive passes, touches in the attacking penalty area, progressive carry. So he's a great dribbler, progressive passes. I mean, he's in the 90th percentile of almost every single metric in the Premier League for somebody that people don't rate because he plays in a really good team and he just happens not to score as many goals as the other guys. So I'm done. Like, he does score goals, maybe not as much as other players, but if you guys were okay with Lacazette not scoring goals as long as he does the link up play, this guy is way better than him. He shits on Lacazette. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. I love the green light. I hope it gets done. There's 230 of you guys in here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. So She Knows Football says Aguero 184 goals in 275 games in the Premier League. Wow. Like Aguero, yeah. When you're playing behind somebody that's so elite, you're always going to look like shit, won't you? But I love Gabriel Jesus. Nobody can change my mind. Sorry. It's just not going to work. Let's see. Yo-Yo says Gabriel Jesus for me is who Arteta wanted Eddie to become. Fair enough. Like, maybe that is what it is because they're not similar because I don't think Jesus is like a fox in the box, but some of the things that Eddie does in terms of his like pressing and, kind of being at the right place at the right time. Yeah, Gabriel Jesus can do a lot of those things, but a lot better. Yeah, I am like his lawyer. Like if I like a player, I will defend them to the death. You guys know how I am with Thomas Partey. I'm like that with Tierney. Like I have facts. Like I would be a good lawyer for some of these guys. John says just with the factos. So yeah, let's see. He's a really good player. He's a very, very good player. So next, Osimhen talks. Now all of a sudden we're linked with Osimhen. If you guys remember during the international break, we did a scouting report for Tammy Abraham, Osimhen, and Darwin Nunez. I've linked that in the comment section, not in the comment section, in the description box. So if you guys want to go back and watch that now that we're being linked with those players again, please do. After this, go and look at that because we did like an in-depth one over the 3 players. And it looks like we're looking at that particular profile, which is great. which eases the mind of Arsenal fans that are like, oh my gosh, but we need like a traditional striker. Well, we're going to get one. Relax, you guys. It just is a matter of who. And you guys can let me know in the chat box who you'd prefer. Do you prefer Osimhen, whose price seems to be closer to 65 million pounds? Because they said it was like 80 euros was when I did the conversion, it was like 65 million pounds. That's way less than I thought it would be. Obviously, like this report says, Arsenal have taken concrete steps for Victor Osimhen. This is through like intermediaries. The striker would be happy to play in the Premier League, provided that he can play in the Champions League. So that's like the huge dun dun dun. If you don't get Champions League, you don't get Osimhen. But we can still talk about it while it feels like we could potentially get Champions League. I also think Champions League is going to be required for NUNEZ. But I wonder if we could get somebody like Tammy Abraham without it. But it's also up to whether or not Roma would play ball. So there's a lot of different factors here. But I like the Osimhen links. And the reason why is because I think he has the qualities to become world class. And he's the type of striker that people don't want to have to play against. I don't like strikers that give the center backs an easy day. Osimhen is somebody that he can do the dark arts, he can win fouls, but equally he can get stuck in with the center backs. He's not somebody that's going to shy away from link up play. So something I don't particularly love about NUNEZ that I like about Osimhen is that Osimhen is willing to stand there and get kicked, where NUNEZ tends to want to go wide so that he doesn't have to get kicked. He's not really somebody that will stand up and hold up the ball. So having somebody like Osimhen, I think, is going to give us that centrality that we don't really have. We don't have that central presence that I think we need at the center forward position for certain games. And he's lightning quick. He's not afraid to use his head. He's a good striker of the ball. NUNEZ and Dominic Calvert-Lewin are not the best strikers of the ball, but Osimhen is a much better striker of the ball. And he's coming into 23 years old. He's not even in his prime yet. And so Osimhen is definitely somebody that I think the Arsenal fan base would really love. Now, do I think it's such a big gap between him and Tammy Abraham and NUNEZ? Not particularly. Like, I think all of them could add what we don't have, raise the floor and raise the ceiling. It's just a matter of who we can actually get, what type of Europe we actually have. But this guy is like getting Gabriel Jesus and Osimhen is a statement. You know, it's a statement, I think, a statement of intent of where Arsenal want to go. If you get DCL, I feel like that's a statement as well. Like, we want to improve, but we want to stay in our comfort zone. Osimhen is definitely out of the comfort zone. He's somebody that's going to expect to play. He's a little bit more of an intense personality, but I really like him and what he could bring to this Arsenal team. We know we lack speed in behind, and we also need somebody who's strong and could kind of stand up and link play. He's not going to link play like Gabriel Jesus would be able to, but he can like pick a pass, turn and pick a pass, like hold up the ball, drop it back. He can do those types of things. So I really like Osimhen a lot. What do you guys think about the links? Do you think it could happen? Do you think he is overrated? Do you think he could adapt to the league? Would you prefer a more in-league recruit, like somebody like Tony or DCL? What do you guys think? Tony says Osimhen is 60 in the 60th percentile for nutmegs. Not good, but not great. Gail says DCL is going to be hella cheap. Yeah, he probably will be really, really inexpensive. The Winchester Crew podcast says Osimhen is a beast. I really rate him. Though Osimhen's weakness is offside a lot, but Osimhen would be a great option. As for Tammy, I don't know enough, but Osimhen is a big signing. He would be a big signing. It's a statement signing. It's kind of, I think, would have the same type of impact that a Vlahovic would. I don't know if that's necessarily what we need to do, is have that big splashy signing, but I wouldn't mind seeing it happen. Yo-Yo says Osimhen, Abraham, NUNEZ, DCL, are any of them flashy? Not to be a snob, but I want my forward to be flashy. So who would be flashy for you, Yo-Yo? If you don't think that Osimhen, Abraham, Nunez, and DCL are flashy, what does flashy look like to you? Because for me, it's like what I would consider flashy is like a Robin van Persie. Um, a definite number 9 that can play like a number 10 as well, has the skill. Osimhen and Abraham and Nunez, DCL are very similar profile. Taller, more physical, can run in behind, can do a little bit link up play, drop, can kind of post up and drop the ball back and do those types of things. So it's a different profile to like a Robin van Persie, who I think is flashy. Shibe says Osimhen is mafia tax. Gail says Mbappe and Holland are flashy. Snake Eye says good signing, but issue is price tag. DCL not for me. I mean, if you know that Osimhen is going to cost 65 million and Tammy Abraham would probably cost about the same as well, to get him away from Roma, and Nunez would also cost about the same because they turned away $60 million bids in January. So all of these signings are going to cost about the same. If you want somebody who's cheaper, you'd go after somebody like DCL. And also Tony, they would like Brentford want 50 million for him. And I don't think he can hold a candle to, or hold a torch, or what is it? Hold a candle to Osimhen. So I think we're going to end up spending a lot no matter what. It's just a matter of what we spend it on. There's other options as well where we could do something like just bring in a bunch of forwards and forget about the center forward, the big number 9 signing. But I still feel like we need that option. Simply says Osimhen is flashy with the physicality and athleticism, in my opinion. Not pretty, but he will always be involved. I just like he can press, he can be physical. He could get he could do the scrappy goal, but also, hit the balls like the cutbacks as well. Like there's variety to the way that he can score goals. He's an aerial threat. He can get up and flick balls on. Like there's just different things that he can do that we don't really have in a center forward right now. But equally, I can see DCL doing some of those things, Tony doing some of those things, just not at a good level. Tammy Abraham has less of that physical presence, I think, which is odd because he's bigger, but his link-up play is better. He can turn and face and kind of beat a man sometimes, and he's an awkward question for center backs as well. Tammy Abraham, he's not really going to score a lot of header goals, I don't think, not like Osimhen, which is so odd, but his link-up play is better. So they all have different things that they can offer. Nunez can play more off wide. He can play more like a winger, but you lose some of that centrality with him. So the options are similar, but different. Captain Joka says, after not getting Vlahovic, we have to get Nunez. I don't want Osimhen. To me, it's underwhelming. Nunez is a star. We need that. I mean, Osimhen does have like star qualities. Like I think people like him because he has like a man bun and he's tall, and South American. So he has like that star quality look to him. He's scoring a lot of goals in a really weak league. He's really making a play for a big move. I wonder what he'd be like in a better league. I know that Champions League gives you kind of a glimpse into what he could be like against better opposition, but I'm always kind of afraid to attribute that to what it would actually be like playing against good opposition day in and day out. But I love Nunez, and obviously I would take him. I think he would be the most obtainable at this point. I still think Osimhen could wait another season and get a big move somewhere. Tammy Abraham with the Chelsea clauses and just going to Roma, it might be difficult, but Nunez is out the door. Like Benfica are going to sell him. I just wonder about how long it will take him to improve his trampoline touch and get used to getting kicked in the ankles. Those are my worries about Nunez. S says Tierney and Saka would love Osimhen. They would feed crosses into him on a plate. I know some people don't really rate needing somebody to be able to head in crosses, but I do think that like we just lack players that want to make runs and let the ball hit them in the head. And so Osimhen would give you something like that. I don't think we need to become a Burnley, but it's nice to have that option, right? Let's see. What do you guys think about Isak? Do you think that he's a sneaky option still, or do you think that's done? Because Isak is looking terrible these days since being linked with us. He did the opposite of Gabriel Jesus. He went down when he got linked with us. But do you think that he's still an option? Because a lot of times when we're linked to people and there's more hype around like Osimhen and TAMMY and DCL, we end up with the guy that we're not really talking about. Do you think Isak can be another option? He links up play. He's a very talented player. He just doesn't have a lot of goals in him right now. Let's see. Blaze says, Jess, I think some fans means players to be flashy like Mbappe, Messi, Ronaldo back in their prime. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I don't really care about flashiness. I'm more of a power and pace, physicality, beat them up, run over them type of person. So I want somebody up top that can run people over. Like that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm like, fuck a flick, kick it in the back of the net. Like, you know what I mean? I'm done. I just want us to be able to run over people. Am I wrong? Snake Eyes says Isak only has 4 goals. Even Aubameyang has goals joining La Liga late. Michael says, what about Lautaro Martinez? I just can't get with this rumor. I like the player. I think he's really, really good. But I just think if you bring in Gabriel Jesus, you don't need to bring in Lautaro Martinez. I think you want to give yourself more versatility. He would cost a lot. And watching him play against Liverpool didn't really give me a lot of like, oh, he definitely got scared by the Virgil van Dijk aura. He got in his vicinity and was like, oh no, let me get away. So Lautaro is not somebody, and I don't even think that he would leave. I don't think he's coming to the Premier League unless he can get to City. I just don't see him in the Premier League. I think he's a good player though. Lion Eyes says Isak is very good link up play, but not clinical. Yeah, he's not. Simply says Isak, from what I've seen this season, good link up play and dribbling, not much else this season, awful finishing. Yeah. Terrence Tibbs says Osimhen is overrated. Fair enough. John says if we get Nunez, I feel like he would eclipse Jesus production mad fast, and then we'll have Jesus on high wages and with buns minutes. I don't know if I agree. I think that because Jesus can still play out wide and play different positions, like I think he's the perfect all-around forward, like kind of like Saka too. Like he can play on both sides. Jesus can play on both sides. Emil Smith-Rowe will at some point play in midfield. So I still think there'll be plenty of minutes for Jesus. I think that there'll be different games that need different solutions. And I see games where we're not going to have a lot of space in behind where Nunez would struggle. Like, don't think for a second that like Pep, okay, we'll see next season, but I would say that there will still be a game or two in the season, like next season, where you'll see Pep revert to his old ways, even with Haaland. Let's see. John says Jesus and Tony for me. Okay, you guys really like Tony. Richard says Isak is probably done. I do think Jet Black rates him highly. Me? He creates his own chances and is tall and really pacey. Who's Jet Black? Who's Jet Black? But you think Isak is probably done. I mean, we're not hearing a lot about him, and sometimes we create a lot of smoke screens in order to get the person that we want done. And it wouldn't be that surprising for him to like fall out of form because he knows he's coming to Arsenal. You know what I mean? Paul says, do you think Arsenal will win a double Champions League and Premier League? I don't even know. I can't even think about that at this point. But there's 220 of you guys here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. We've kind of done the transfer rumor kind of stuff. So now I just want to kind of do some thoughts and get your guys' opinions on things that are happening around the Arsenal, things that I've heard, things that I've seen, things that alarm me. So Ramsdale's form, are you worried about it? Do you think he needs dropping? I was listening to one of my favorite Arsenal podcasts after the game, and I was like super excited to listen to it. And they got onto the Ramsdale part. And of course, I expected them to get stuck into him because he is not in good form. And I mean, honestly, the pass that he gave away to McTominay should have been a goal. Bruno Fernandes shouldn't be missing that. But to say that he should be dropped, I just feel like is so wrong. It's just so wrong. I just don't see why we would drop our number one goalkeeper. And I get that Leno had a good game against Aston Villa, but when your number one player, one of your better players is out of form, the guy on the bench always looks world class. And during the Aston Villa game, we struggled to pass out of the back. And that's not something that I feel like we should invite on now. I get that Ramsdale is really struggling, but I think this is the time to kind of stick with him and give him confidence, then rip it out by dropping him now. If you drop him now, you'll ruin his confidence. And he's your number one goalkeeper. And for 60, 70% of the season, he has been unplayable, number one signing, the guy that saved Arsenal, the reason why we can play out of the back better, the guy that's hitting 50-yard balls to Martinelli's toe and Saka's toe, making saves that we've never seen before. And now he's going through a bad run of form, and we're going to drop him. For Leno, of all people, no. I can't get behind it. I do feel like there might be a little bit of confirmation bias here as well. There were a lot of fans that were very reluctant to be behind the Ramsdale signing and got a lot of stick after the fact when he started off really well at Arsenal. So there may be a little bit of, see, I told you so, he isn't as good, and kind of trying to bring that back. But I just don't know how you can see. It's kind of like when we were playing really well for those 4 months and we had the 3-game losing streak, you could really forget how good that player actually is and decide that this is who they really are. And what I saw before is not real. And I think we have to be really careful about that. Ramsdale is a confidence player. We know he sees what's happening online. He mentioned it himself when he signed for Arsenal, that he saw that there was a lot of people that didn't want him. And coming into the run-in, I think the last thing we need to be saying is drop him. I think we need to try to give him confidence. He also might be still holding on to that injury or carrying that injury. He came back really, really fast from that hip injury. And so he might just be struggling from that. I am very, very apprehensive to start in on the Ramsdale is not as good as we thought he was. And, we were too quick to say that he was good, and he's not. He's a relegation level goalkeeper when for the majority of the season, he's been good. He got an injury and now he's out of form. And now we're like, okay, he's shit. He should be dropped. I can't deal with it. But at the same time, his form is worrying, but everybody goes through bad form. Saka's been in bad form. ESR has been in bad form. Martinelli's been in bad form. Everybody has been in bad form. Doesn't help that you have Cedric and Tavares and Gabriel and White that's been patchy as well. So I'm not really and he's 23 years old. Most goalkeepers at 23 are sitting on somebody's bench on loan. Ask Emi Martinez. So I'm just a little bit apprehensive about Ramsdale's crap. I don't think he needs to be dropped. Tony says, I think it was today's Arscast. They were saying Rams does not have a confidence problem. Right after the bad giveaway to Bruno's shot, he tried the same pass 2 minutes later. Well, what do you think it is then? He does. That's one of the reasons why they recruited him, is because they saw how he responded to making mistakes and getting goals scored against him. He was able to erase it quickly and move on. I just see him in situations where he used to claim the ball, be apprehensive to come off his line or kind of go and come back and go and come back. His decision-making on the ball has been a little bit more reckless than it was in the beginning. But I still see our number one goalkeeper there. I don't see somebody that needs to get dropped. I just don't see it. Femi says, I will be sticking with Ramsdale to the end of the season, not to overlook his slip-ups, but mainly because of the cohesion he was with the back four. His energy is just top positive and influential. Let's see. Lynn says, do you think just that because he was so brilliant at first, now he's leveled out a little bit? Um, I think there was like a level of like I think players get like a harsh reality when they come to Arsenal that it's not all rainbows and butterflies. I think me and Yo-Yo have had a conversation about this in the chat before, that on a show prior, that I think the excitement around the new players coming, Tomiyasu, Ben White, and Ramsdale all being in that back line and them really being gung ho about defending and really wanting to show how good they are. It's a long season and you go through difficult periods. When you go through difficult periods at Sheffield United and Bournemouth, it's completely different than going through a difficult period at Arsenal. And that's not to be like um rude about the level of those clubs, but when you make a mistake at Arsenal, it's front page news. Like it's a big fucking deal. And so I do think that there's probably just a little bit of mental and physical fatigue coming from a smaller club. I mean, all of them have Tomiyasu, White, and Ramsdale have all came from smaller clubs where the spotlight wasn't on them like this, and now all of a sudden it's bright lights. And you're a young team where the club is trying to get into the top four, and it's so much pressure. And so I'm very apprehensive about saying this is who he is. I would prefer to, because you could go either way. You could say this is who he's always been, he was just playing up, or the person that we saw before is who he really is and he's going through bad form. I'm going with the latter. I think who he was is who he started off as, and that's also the reason why he was in the England national team. He was in the England national team before he came to Arsenal. So he's highly rated by people outside of Arsenal. So it's not just us who have seen this in him. So for me, Ramsdale is our number one. I'm going to back him. I don't think he needs to be dropped. I think he just needs that solidity of his back four in front of him. Remember last season where Liverpool were going through that really bad run of form? And they had lost Van Dijk. They didn't have Matip. They were basically bringing in any old guy to play center back. They were losing guys left and right. And Alisson looked really shaky then. He was coming off his line doing silly shit. He was getting he was having some shocking games. That's not to say that Alisson is not world class. We know Alisson is world class, but he looked so different without Van Dijk and Matip and his settled back four in front of him. So again, very apprehensive to go into, see, he was shit this whole time. Like, I just can't do it. And that's not what I say. I'm saying that everybody is saying, but I do think that a little bit of the criticism is going back to the initial, I always felt like he was a bad signing thing. So yeah. She Knows Football says underrated save versus Dallo. Yes, it was near post, but he had it covered and cut out the cross. Snake Eyes says Ramsdale is number one still. Okay, you said he's still hurt. That being said, as long as he is able, I'm sticking with him. He is better than Leno. S says Ben White is our best signing. If we paid 25 for him, he'd be getting the Ramsdale hype. I hype Ben White every single day. He's another one that I'll defend to the death. Like, he's just, I don't think people realize how good he is. Like, he really is just that good. But like you said, he cost 50 million. So obviously the scrutiny is so much more. Yo-Yo said, this is the first squeaky bum time of this magnitude for a lot of the squad. People just accept that they were never going to be perfect. People must accept that they were never going to be perfect. They were strangers at the start of the season. It takes time to get those reps up together and start playing at on a consistent basis. Like, what Liverpool and Man City are doing come from reps. These players have been playing with each other for so long, and our guys kind of built some of that up. But once Tommy went and once Tierney went, you could just see that there's so much fragility in that back line. But does that mean that they're shit and they always were and the signings were crap? No, I don't believe that. Lashane, I'm not sure if you know, but we already signed a goalkeeper. His name is Matt Turner. He plays for the New England Revolution. He's American, so we're not getting another goalkeeper this summer. Goalkeepers are done. no Onana, and he's been shit. Onana has been crap. Like, I would not want him at Arsenal. Tony says, I think it's injury and a shaky line. Shibe says, Ramsdale needs loose hitting the Red Bull drinks. He's hyperactive. He is hyperactive. Like, he just seems very like nervous energy right now, where his energy was used for positive in the beginning of the season. It seems like it's almost like a negative now. Stefan says he just has deep trust in Gabriel. I just don't believe in dropping him right now. I think it's too much. Michael says, no, I think he has saved us a lot this season. That save from Dalot against Tottenham, world-class save. Also, he has good communication with Gabriel and White at the back, which brings them confidence. I think, we're quick to forget the good when we feel like everything we're seeing is bad. And Ramsdale has saved us. Like, do you guys remember that period where we had got all of our players in? We had Tomiyasu, we had Ben White, everybody was there, but we couldn't score goals and we were really struggling. There were several games where Ramsdale really saved us. In particular, Brighton away from home. We should have lost that game, but Ramsdale was on a tear. Both Leicester games could have been completely different had he had not made those saves. So he is one of those players where I feel like had he not been here, we might not be where we are now. So we kind of have to stick with him. And we should back him and be loyal instead of like, okay, this is the first time he's looking shaky, drop him. Because do you guys remember what it was like under Leno? Like, he wasn't great, not towards the end. P.S. Okwu, thank you so much for your super chat. Says, come on, guys, hit the like button. You guys hit that like button. There's like 200 of you guys in here. S says, hopefully Matt Turner can push Ramsdale. Yeah, hopefully. I think he can. He's a very good goalkeeper. He's way better than Zach Steffen. I know people are probably like, well, isn't he American too? No, he's way better than Zach Steffen. Way better. Yo-Yo says, regardless of numbers, I'm confident Arteta is slowly building the best defense in the Prem. Cite, Pool, Chelsea have guys in their prime. Chelsea's defense is young and growing. I mean, our defense is insane. Tomiyasu, 22, Ramsdale, 23, White, 24, Gabriel, 24, Tierney, 24. Or did he turn 25 yet? They're very young. And then when you add like Tavares in there, like it's very young. So I would want to give them time. Cece says, I think it's the type of criticism you get being at a club like Arsenal. I agree. I just think you make a mistake at Sheffield and it goes away in a day, or people don't even talk about it. When Ramsdale or White or anybody makes a mistake or anything, it's just talked about in such a way that it just doesn't go away. So I think we just have to remember that this is their first season at Arsenal. And so if this was like season 3, then I'd be more worried. But I mean, it's their first season and it's hard being an Arsenal player. It just is. You can see it. You can see how hard it is being an Arsenal player. And that's why sometimes when we look at other teams and look at other players and what they're doing at their respective teams, I just feel like you have to remember that they're not playing for the Arsenal. Like playing for Crystal Palace and playing for Aston Villa, these teams, there's not as much pressure. At Arsenal, like not only are we a big club, but we're a big club that's trying to get back to where we should be. That's a lot of pressure for 20-year-olds. It just is. Lewis says, Leno has done nothing that deserves Ramsdale being dropped. The MLS player was a good business deal. I can't wait to see him, to be honest. She Knows Football, thank you so much for your super chat. Says, can you imagine a peaceful, positive place to discuss football like adults? It's crazy. Never thought this would be found on the internet. Yeah, you guys, I don't really like doing all the arguing and stuff. I just want to like chill and talk about it, you know? S says, I still haven't noticed that much Ramsdale slander lately. It is there. It is there. If he has another bad game, it'll go through the roof. But it is there. And just hearing a big podcast say something like that, like he should be dropped, everybody's entitled to their opinion, and I respect it. I just don't agree with it. So I wanted to talk about it with you guys. And that being said, let's move on to the next topic, which is Martin Odegaard. Michael says, what do you think about Odegaard being the next captain? And I want to know what you guys think about that as well, because, and I have to say, and I'll say it again, because you guys, I'm one of those types of people when I feel like I was wrong, I will say, I think I was really wrong. And the past summer, I really wanted Madison. And the reason why was because I still think Madison is a really quality player, but I thought he was ahead of Odegaard in his progression in terms of what he could add in final product or end product. Because when Odegaard was on his loan, even though I saw such great promise, I felt like he would struggle to get the end product that we needed from him. And, last summer was a pressurized summer. We had just finished 8th. And I feel like the midfield, it was and still is a big problem that needs to be addressed. And so I'm thinking get somebody Premier League proven, that's a little bit older, that's been there, done that, blah, blah, blah. Get James Madison. And I've always really rated Odegaard, though. And that's the hard thing about talking about football on the internet is that people decide, oh, because you wanted Madison, you hated Odegaard. When he was playing at Real Sociedad, I was trying to figure out how many players we needed to sell to get Odegaard in our team because I've always rated him. Always, always, always. But sometimes, even if you rate a player, you may feel like another player is better for your team. That being said, I was completely wrong on that. Odegaard was the exact player that we needed, and I'm glad that I'm not running the club and the club knew better because Odegaard was the right choice. He was a better choice than James Madison. The amount of chances that he's creating is something serious for a player of his age. He's only 23. He has a lot of experience, but not a lot of consistent experience at the highest level. Premier League chances created from open play in 2021 and 2022. Bruno Fernandes, obviously, because he spams crosses all day, is really, really high up on that list. But 58, Mohamed Salah. 52, Martin Odegaard. 52, Bukayo Saka. 52, Kevin De Bruyne. 52, Bernardo Silva. Besides our players, every single one of those other players are in their prime. Bernardo Silva is 27, Kevin De Bruyne is 30, Mohamed Salah is about 30, and Bruno Fernandes is 27. Now, we know Bukayo Saka is a freak of nature. But what have we bought in Martin Odegaard? I keep asking this question because I'm like, what kind of robbery? I mean, we have really done a madness here. And I just feel so happy that we have this player because he's only going to get better. And I thought we had lost him a little bit in the last couple of games, but the way that he's come into this captain's role against Chelsea and against Manchester United is exactly what we need. And I can't get over how good he is. I really, really can't. And again, I'm so happy that I'm not running the club and Arteta and Edu are doing it. Not always, but I am. So this is coming from a Norwegian publication, I think. And this is from Martin Odegaard's dad. And he said, Martin is very satisfied with Arteta, but also really satisfied with the other staff, everything around the club and the dressing room, team culture, and the other players have received him well. We know that he's never really felt settled. He's always kind of been on loans here and there, in and out. And what I love about some of the quotes that I've heard from Martin and obviously his dad here is that he feels like he's at home. And that bodes well for our future. We have young players that are really talented that feel like they're at home. And I think Odegaard might be my favorite signing of the summer. I go back and forth all the time. I used to think it was Ramsdale, but I've cooled on that a little bit. I thought it was Ben White, but I've cooled on that a little bit. I love them, but I do think it's Martin Odegaard. And here's why. It's because we bought a true leader that is going to be a world-class player very soon. He's putting up the type of underlying metrics that when he gets players in the team that are more clinical, he's going to explode. And I just like his quiet confidence. And he's somebody that could have just crumbled after not really making it at Real Madrid and came to Arsenal and is starting to blossom. And I love that for him and I love that for us. But what do you guys think about Martin Odegaard in these last couple of games and just him this entire season? He had a difficult period when he first got here where he wasn't even getting into the team. Smith Rowe was over him in the team and he just kind of clicked into gear. And ever since then, it's been his spot. And I just don't even know what to think because he could just be whatever he wants to be. And that's scary. for the league, not us. S says Ben White for me is the best signing, but Odegaard is second. Callum F says, I'm happy with Odegaard, just would like him to take more shots near the box. Fair enough. Right now he has 6 goals and 5 assists or something like that. That's not bad for somebody that's, I think, is coming into goal scoring. And he should have way more assists than what he has. Let's see. Lewis says Madison is permanently injured. She Knows Football says he can get pushed around and he's a little soft mentally is my concern because he's so talented. I wouldn't say soft mentally. I would say that he is a little lightweight, but the difference between him and but creative players of the past, especially ones that we've had at Arsenal, is that he does get stuck in. He does run. He does the hard yards. He leads by example. Sometimes you can't help how small you are. You can't help that you don't have the physicality, but how you can make it up is by doing the work. And that's what he does. You look at somebody like Bernardo Silva, who is very tiny. And probably when you look at him, you're like, he would never be able to play in the Premier League. But he makes up for it because he does the work. He works harder than anybody else on the pitch. And I think Odegaard is kind of similar to that. He's probably never going to be somebody that can bully somebody on the ball, but he does the stuff that other creative players don't. So, yeah, but soft mentally, I think, I wouldn't say he's soft mentally because, I mean, he's basically our captain. And he leads the team, not only from by yelling, but through what he does, actually does, like actions. And there's been times where we needed a goal and he scored. I think against Manchester United, he had one of the goals that helped us come back. Obviously, he gives up the penalty, but he scores a goal in a situation where we really needed it. And even against Everton, he scored a goal as well that got us back into the game. So I do think that he has some mental toughness that people don't give him credit for. Stefan says, when he gets more clinical, he'll be world class. I think so too. S says, we need a creative number 8 to take some of the pressure away from Odegaard. I think that's what we're going to do. I do think that the way that we played with Xhaka a little bit higher and Thomas Partey deeper allows us to bring in a more attacking 8 to give us some more creativity. And that will also allow the center forward to have to be less of a creative player. We'll replace the creative player in our number 9 and make that our number 8 and take some of that burden away from Odegaard. That would allow you to have somebody like an Osimhen or a NUNEZ up there who's just up there to score. Right now, because we have a more defensive-minded pivot player and Granit Xhaka in that 8, your number 9 has to be creative. So I think we'll see a little bit of a shift there when we get some of our new players in. DMC says, Odegaard is a bit afraid to pass to Martinelli. I wonder why. I haven't seen that. In what game did you see him afraid to pass to Martinelli? Let me know when you saw that. I would love to know. Happily Egg says, we were lucky we got Thiago Alcantara, but Odegaard is a young version. When I tell you, I've never seen such, okay, so Thiago is somebody that I think is underrated because of how many injuries he's had. And he was really, really good for Bayern Munich, I think, when Hansi Flick was there. But he kind of played like second fiddle at Barcelona when he was there under Pep. But when he's fit, he's a top midfielder. I would say got to be like top 10 in his position, maybe top 5, because when he's fit, he's a madness. Like some of the things that he was doing and this is against City and even against Man United. They're not a very good team, but he was just pinging it for fun. And I thought at one point that Man City may have thought he was a weakness and started pressing him. It didn't matter in both games. So I think Thiago is like the standard of what a midfielder should be in those deep positions. But I don't know if Odegaard is a younger version. I view him more of a younger version of David Silva, but if you're comparing him to Thiago, I'll take it. I'll take it. But Thiago is just he's so fun to watch, like, because he's just so good. I think our version of Thiago is probably Thomas Partey, but I won't sit here and claim that I think that they're amazingly similar because I also think Thomas Partey does a little bit of the Fabinho stuff as well. But yeah, Stefan says the Martin Odegaard superstar song is lit. Yeah, Odegaard is great. Lawrence says Odegaard, Tomiyasu, Ramsdale, White in that order. I can't get over how good Odegaard is. Lewis says if you're small player smarter, if you're small play smarter and harder, exactly. And that's what he does. Like we haven't really had creative players that worked really hard. Jay says if Everton go down, would you take Anthony Gordon? No, I would not. I don't think we need him. S says I wished we would have gone in for Thiago in the same summer we got Partey. We were linked to him. I wanted both. I mean, what kind of midfield would that be? Like, that would be insane midfield. IP says Odegaard is a great assist and pre-assist king. That's a lot of it as well. Is like when you see some of the things that Odegaard does, sometimes it's the pre-assist, but he has the ability to become somewhat of an assist king type of guy if we had more clinical players, I would say. Because he should have had an assist yesterday for Nketiah's goal, but he was offside. Lewis, oh no, it wasn't even that one. It was the one where it was the 32-person move and he flicked it on to Nketiah and Nketiah kicked it too hard and too high. He should have had an assist there. Yeah, I'd always rated Thiago. Like he just gets injured so much. She Knows Football says critical of Odegaard because he's the most talented person on the pitch. Could be a top 10 player in the world. I think what he's doing so far at Arsenal bodes well for the future. He has a long way to go. When we start talking about best midfielders in the world or in the Premier League, consistency becomes a real part of the conversation. And I think that he has to build up those reps. I'm very apprehensive about saying that he's better than people that have been doing it for years, but it looks kind of like he can do it. And that's what's promising for me. But I just wanted to heap some praise on Martin Odegaard because he's been wearing the captain's armband for the last 2 games, and we've been in a very difficult period, and he's led by example. And he hasn't he hasn't hid or anything like that. And so I really love that. And I do think I want him to be captain next season. The only reason why I would take it and not give it to Tierney is because I don't think he'll be available enough. But I do think like out of the guys that we've considered and Ramsdale and Ben White and Tierney, Odegaard is the best fit for captain right now because he's going to play most games. Just like Ben White plays most games, but Odegaard is going to play like damn near every game. That's why when I see people with their little lineups for next season that don't include Odegaard, I'm like, you're smoking crack, man. He's going to play almost every single game. Like, come on. Yo-Yo says Odegaard is clear of the so-called transformational Bruno. Oh my gosh. Bruno was so bad against us the other day. It was great. S says, yep, and sometimes Odegaard goes missing. He does need to just be more consistent, I would say. And in games where I don't know what kind of games we can call them because he's played in big games and it has been influential in what we've done. I haven't seen him go missing as much, but I think if we get another player that can take some of the shine off of him, then he'll be able to stay more engaged in games. I think right now, because there's so much focus on Saka and Odegaard, that sometimes they can get marked out of the game quite easily because we don't have a number 9 that they have to mark. They don't have another number 8 that they have to mark. And our left side can be a little bit weak sometimes. Let's see. Stefan says Vieira targeted him and Saka specifically versus Palace. It shows we need more creativity. Exactly. She Knows Football says Bruno G goal for Newcastle was class. You called it. We should have gotten him. He's awesome. I can't even go over it anymore. I was told that he wouldn't make it in the Premier League because he got dribbled past too much and all these like different things. And I'm like, football is not that difficult to understand. Like we try to make it more difficult than it actually is. You can tell when a player is really good. You just can. And Bruno Guimaraes, not only eye test wise, but numbers wise, statistically, over the last year has been one of the best midfielders in Europe. And so for him to be so young, he's just the type of player that I would imagine would be a really good 8 for us because he can do some defensive work. He's robust enough to get back and get stuck in, but he also adds something in the final third. And so he can play make from deep. He can do things from the edge of the box. He can score goals himself. He can beat a man. Like, he just was the signing for me. Like, I still think about it to this day. To this day, I still think about it like, why didn't we get him? So yeah, I just think it was obvious that he was a really good player. So hopefully we get somebody that, like, I hope over the summer we get somebody and we're like, oh, that's why we didn't get him. You know what I mean? But yeah, maybe I'll let it go one day. But yeah, you guys, I just wanted to do a kind of not quick show because we've been here for an hour and a half, but just talk about the news and some topics, Ramsdale, Odegaard, and Elneny in particular. I'll be doing a match preview for our game later on this week, and I'll be kind of busy this week, but I'll try to pop in and do shows if there's some like breaking news and stuff like that. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you tell a friend. Everybody that super chatted, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. All of my members, thank you, thank you, thank you. Make sure you guys follow us on Twitter at SheKnowsArsenal and at Jacinho Tweets. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.